We have Lauren Walker on the show on the Life as a Secret Yogi podcast. And Lauren Walker created her system called Energy Medicine Yoga, or EMYoga for short, with the goal to help students balance and have more ease and calm their lives. We're going to talk about this and a lot more. So we have Lauren Walker on the show. Thanks so much for sharing your life as a secret yogi. So welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I'm super grateful for the time that you're giving myself and the audience. And Lauren, for everyone who doesn't know, is the author of two of her books. And like we said, the system, Energy Medicine Yoga. So her first book, Energy Medicine Yoga, Amplify the Healing Power of Your Yoga Practice, and her follow-up book, The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. She's been teaching yoga and medicine since 1997, and Lauren teaches EMYoga across the United States and internationally, and has been featured in the Yoga Journal, Mantra Plus, Yoga Digest, and even the New York Times. She also trains trainers, fellow teacher trainers, um, and in her system, Energy Medicine Yoga. So before we dive in, a little bit about the audience of the show. The audience of the show are those that want to take the practice of yoga, meditation, breath work, energy work, animal assisted therapy, among other related tools, into the real world. It's a lot of people who are looking to perform at a higher level in other disciplines, may it be running, golf, surfing, weightlifting, freediving, basketball, art, music, entrepreneurship, and so on, or to simply just make life beautiful. And the audience does not necessarily have the desire to become the stereotypical yogi or yoga teacher, but nevertheless, the audience would like to utilize the tools of yoga, medicine, um, yoga, meditation, and other related practices to make life beautiful. And in short, the message of the secret yogi is that we all have this heroic self, our inner source that we cultivate through the tools of yoga, meditation, breath work, animal assisted therapy, and these related practices to make a seemingly ordinary world extraordinary. It's that we all have this superhero that lives within, and these practices, yoga, meditation, breath work, energy work, and similar practices, help us tap into our quote superpowers. Our superpowers being mindfulness, awareness, love, focus, and creating happiness within, to just list a few, and ultimately just feel good in a body that we love. So, we really hope that you enjoy this episode and it helps you unlock your superpowers through yoga and these other tools, specifically on this topic, energy medicine yoga, and this fusion that which we'll talk more about. And if you like this episode, make sure to share it with at least one person that needs it most. And please leave a written review and rating wherever you're listening to right now. Every rating review is greatly appreciated. So for everyone who has already left one, thank you for doing that. And Lauren, I know that was a long introduction. Thanks so much for your time. And let's just dive right into your background that led you into discovering the power of yoga and ultimately energy medicine yoga.
Yeah, I love your mission. It's really beautiful and really quite aligned with what we're doing here. And it's so interesting. The Hidden Yogi is your podcast. I used to call myself the Accidental Yogi because I never really set out to become a yoga practitioner and certainly not a yoga teacher. I stumbled upon both of them kind of by accident, serendipity, I would say more than accident. So I started practicing yoga when I was living in New York City and needed an outlet. And I'm not a runner, and that's kind of the main outlet for people in the city. And so I stumbled into a yoga studio and started practicing yoga, a very, very intensely physical form of yoga and also deeply spiritual. And it really opened up my eyes and awareness to this whole interior world that I hadn't been exposed to before in quite the same way. I mean, I had, grown up with some spiritual practice and some physical practice, but not aligned the way yoga is. And then I dove right in. I took a teacher training. I started teaching in New York City and then moved back to Montana and started teaching in Montana. and had quite a crazy and wild, exciting yoga teaching journey. And then I came to another crossroads in my life where it was either give up teaching, find another yoga teacher to take me deeper, or something totally other. And in the serendipitous way that the universe works, I was introduced to the teachings of Donna Eden. And she is the creator of the Eden method, Eden energy medicine. And it changed my world, and it changed the way that I teach. And when I went back to teaching yoga again, it was all that I could teach was these practices intertwined with yoga. And it became soon quite clear to me that this was not just a couple of things I was sprinkling on the top. This was intrinsic to the practice itself. And so I created my own form of practice, my own style, codified it, wrote it down, published a book, published another book, and my third book will be coming out next year. So
Wow,
that's
congrats.
here to stay. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, almost congrats. Yeah, but that's huge. Anybody that authors books, I give them huge credit because it's like getting all your crazy thoughts into clear, concise manner that yeah, is digestible. So I give you credit.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's an awesome story. Did I cut you off there? Were you
No,
continuing something?
no.
Oh yeah. So it seemed like the turning point was kind of when you found something more. It's like you kind of reached this precipice in yoga and your yoga journey, and it really is a journey. I mean, there is no endpoint in that terms, but there's always this point where you reach in any discipline where it's like there has to be something more, and sometimes that's fusing two disciplines together, like you did, and you created your own system, which is awesome. And what did you feel like kind of that purpose was in creating that system in terms of it helped you, but in creating the system, you must have had this sense of purpose that you were going to also there's other people that kind of needed it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because when I did start doing practicing these two disciplines together on my own, I was working through a lot of really challenging personal situations in my life, not so much physical, more emotional and spiritual kind of uh, grief, I would say. And when I finally went back to teaching yoga, I didn't realize I was going to be teaching energy medicine yoga. I was just, teaching yoga. And it turned out that I ended up teaching at a very small college in the town that I had moved to in Vermont. And it was Norwich University, which is the oldest private military college in the country. And it's not a place that you would assume would have a yoga practice there. And the students were so earnest in their work ethic and so um, passionate about what they were doing there at Norwich. And they came to my class, and it was really the only time that they got to relax at all. I mean, for the first bunch of time, they would call me ma'am, and it's very regimented. And I would make them do push-ups if they called me ma'am, right? Because I wanted to equalize the stage, which is not really what they're learning to do there at all. They're really learning to be part of a hierarchy. And they were also training to go off into theaters of war all over the world. And so I started showing up in a different way, and I wanted to give them tools that would help them stay with their intrinsic self, to understand their soul, to have a moral and ethical compass, no matter what situations they were involved in. It was around the time that Abu Ghraib was going on and those atrocities there, and I didn't want any of my students to be involved in that kind of horrific behaviors. And so I wanted to give them really actionable tools. And yoga was wonderful. And the beautiful thing was that none of them had a yoga background. So whatever I was bringing to them, they were completely open to. And so I was teaching them traditional yoga, but then I was sprinkling on all of these energy practices that I had started learning with Donna. And the more energy work that came into the yoga, the better outcomes we were all having. They were just off the charts with their outcomes. And we started to do a study. Actually, the commandant of cadets allowed me to do a study with my students. And they were having incredible outcomes. They were sleeping better. Their stress was going down. They were performing better in exams. They were performing better at, all of the people going out for special ops and having to swim the entire length of the pool back and forth underwater. And all of a sudden they were achieving all of these things. And it was incredible. And so I knew at that point that that was the mission. Now, it started with these incredibly beautiful students at Norwich, and then I started just teaching everywhere, and it was replicable over and over again. And I have students coming up to me that, I've studied yoga for 10, 20, 30 years, and either I was bored with the practice and ready to quit, or it just wasn't fulfilling me, or it wasn't really changing anything for me. And all of a sudden I started practicing energy medicine yoga and healing, resolving, calming, better sleep, better relationships, like everything just off the charts. So that's really what the mission turned out to be. And it really just started with me wanting to heal myself and my own grief and my own traumas, which accelerated over time. As the longer you live, the more you have to grieve, and also more you have to be joyful about, and to find that balance and to be able to process and be really grounded and centered at the same time that you're experiencing life in all of its fullness, is the promise of energy medicine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I have so many questions, and some of them might get answered. So we could kind of just break it down and start from the top and the broad topic of just kind of what exactly is energy medicine yoga. So we know the purpose, but kind of can we break it down a little bit in terms of like the concepts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yoga traditionally is an energetic practice, but it's less and less practice like that in this country. It's become more of a fitness event or a meditation tool, which are all incredibly powerful in and of themselves. I mean, I got into yoga at a very physical level before I started to really dive into more of the spiritual practices. But energy medicine yoga is based on the fact that we have 9 energy systems in the body. And energy is all there is. So your entire physical body arises from this substrate of energy that the entire universe is made of and created from. And so it's the language that your body speaks in. And everything that arises in the physical body, in the mental body, in the spiritual body, begins in the energetic body. So once you understand that language and can speak in that language, you have an ease of working with all of these other systems. For instance, anything that's going to happen in the physical body exists in the fields around the body before it manifests in the physical body. How powerful is that, to be able to speak to those dis-ease patterns that are about to become physicalized before they do? And so we start to balance all of the energy systems in the body, bring it into coherence, and then everything else must follow, because everything arises from the energy. So if the energy is balanced, the energy is coherent, the physical body, the mental body, the spiritual body are balanced and coherent. And there's just incredible applications for that in really any area that you're working in your life.
Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned on your website and in your books that traditional yoga really only encompasses one of these energy systems, which is the chakras. Is this true? Or maybe you could kind of, how I could ask this is like, how does this differ, or even like how is it utilized in like a normal yoga practice in terms of like how you would teach it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
another great question. So in traditional yoga, there are many energetic practices. The energy system that is mostly used in traditional yoga is chakras. Sometimes there's references to the aura, which is another one of the discrete energy systems of the body. And that's kind of it. But you will hear a lot about prana, which is the life force energy that moves through the body in yoga classes and practices, and maybe the koshas, which are energetic layers in the body, or physical layers, one of them, but then energetic layers in the body. So there are references to these sorts of things, but they're not so directly worked with. And even the chakras in most traditional practices, you'll work with the root chakra, which is at the base of the body, by doing maybe sitting postures or things that, you know, working with the hips, right? And then the second and third chakras, maybe you'll do twists to access those chakras. But that's not, or you might do meditations where you visualize them. But most of those visualizations and a lot of the things that you learn in traditional yoga practices aren't exactly how the chakras work and are utilized, I guess, for a better word, in the body. So the chakras are one of the most powerful systems in the body. And I never really learned the depth of that until I started studying with Donna. Every chakra has 7 layers. Each layer spins in 2 directions, clockwise and counterclockwise, either drawing energy in or releasing energy out. And each chakra resonates with different endocrine glands in the body, but also different emotional systems in the body, and are connected to all of the other energy systems in the body as well. So they're connected to the meridians, which is an energy system utilized in ancient Chinese medicine, and is very prominent in the energetic body, but isn't really worked with that much in yoga because yoga focuses more on the chakras, but the meridians feed the chakras. And so all of these systems are interconnected. And so we work with them in a very tactile way. So that understanding of how they move, and then you actually start to move those chakras with your hands, with your body, with doing visualizations that are very guided, with different massage techniques and acupressure points that access these energy systems. So it's not this kind of woo-woo esoteric thing like, what are the chakras? I need to balance all my chakras. I remember years ago somebody taking stones and twirling stones over my chakras to balance them. And I was like, okay, I don't know. I didn't know anything about anything at that point. Maybe that balances the chakras. I don't know. But that's certainly not how we do it in energy medicine yoga. So, so, you know, some of the practices look very similar to traditional yoga practices. We do a lot of thumping and tapping, like physically on the body to wake up different energy systems. The energy is not subtle. And in traditional yoga, we often hear the subtle energy, the subtle body. I even have a course on Yoga Journal that's transformation of the subtle body. And I keep saying in the course, but it's not really subtle. It's not subtle. Your energetic body is not subtle. It's not esoteric. It's not out there. It is you, and it is very tactile. And so we do very tactile things to kind of work with the clay, so to speak, of the physical form to access the underlying energy. It was a long answer, but I don't know if
Yeah, no. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole new way to, and powerful tool to unlock your secret yogi, as we call it on the show. And I'm even going to go off a little bit from the questions that I had, just because I'm super interested in what you're saying. In terms of like, the first thing that pops in my mind is like kind of the practices that I'm a little familiar with, which is Reiki, and something new, which I became familiar with, we're going to do an episode on, which is source point therapy. And this seems like a practice that is both, from when I see those practices, I mean, I'm sure somebody could do Reiki on themselves and stuff like, and that's totally fine. But this just seems like more of a practice of that an individual can do. And kind of the thumping and stuff like that, and less subtler practice almost remind me a little bit of like a Kundalini type of practice. So it's like this fusion, and I could be totally incorrect. And maybe we could unpack that a little bit further on type of like, what does a practice look like? Like if a student was going into a class, is it something that they could practice on their own? Do they need a practitioner or a teacher? Yeah, maybe we could unpack that a little further.
Yeah, so Reiki works with this life force energy, prana or chi, that we all have in our bodies. And so using your hands, which are electromagnetic, to guide and move energy is something that we utilize quite a bit. We use source points as well. So I'd be really interested to know if they're the same source points, which are, they're acupressure points along the meridian lines that feed energy directly to the organs. So you can absolutely practice energy medicine yoga by yourself. I mean, I've got these books, I've got tons of videos to kind of give you help and hints and guides to begin. And then once you get a level of understanding and mastery of it, then somewhere between understanding and mastery, you can create your own practice at home, which is of course where the juice of any practice is a continual commitment to doing it in your own time and space. And so, I used, I had a yoga journal article in last month's yoga journal about what is the methodology of energy medicine yoga. And I used this five-point process called squat, hang, thump, hold, weave. Squat, hang, thump, hold, weave. And so that is kind of the essence of everything. The squatting, making the body small. And I write about squats in particular in both of my books because it's one of the most powerful poses you can do for aging and detoxing and all of that. So squat, hang, which is then to expand the body out. So we think of a forward bend as a hang, but it's also just anything that's more expansive in the body. So the opposite of a squat. So it's sort of extension and contraction. And this idea of this yin yang, which is what all energy is. Energy is yin yang. It is that polarity of positive chasing negative or negative chasing positive, which makes everything in the world move and every cell in your body move. And so understanding that idea of that contraction and expansion within your body, within every pose that you do. Squat, hang, thump. So everything in your body pulses. And your heartbeat pulses, your lungs, your breath pulses in and out of the body of peristalsis that pulses your digestive system. You have valves all over the body that pulse open and close. And so that's one of the languages of the body is pulsation. And so that thumping, that banging on the chest or banging on the face, a little bit lighter on the face, or banging down the legs on particular points, wakes this energy up and speaks in its own language. And so we thump on different areas of the body, thumping over the thymus to stimulate the immune system, thumping over points on the spleen to stimulate the spleen system, which is about digestion and assimilation. That squat, hang, thump. Hold. So your hands are electromagnetic. So when you hold different specific points in the body, you are directing energy to those points. So you mentioned source points. We have source points on the wrists, for example. 3 source points on the wrist that speak to the lung, the heart, and the pericardium, or called circulation sex, which is the pericardium, the muscle around the heart that keeps the heart beating in rhythm and encloses the heart and protects the heart. It's called the heart protector. And when you hold those points, you send energy directly to them and you will start to feel them pulse or thump, right? Because that's the language. There's points all over the body that you hold for very specific reasons, points all over the head, on the torso, on the legs, behind the knees that have very specific results that come from holding those points, that drive energy to specific systems, that do specific things, releasing emotions, transforming emotions, feeding energy directly to the organs, healing. It goes on and on and on with the hold. And then weaving. So one of the principles of coherence in the body is having the left and right brain integration. And that integration starts at the very cellular, actually subcellular, the DNA level, which works in this crossover pattern in the body. All of the energy in the body needs to be crossing over for you to work at optimal levels. And so that crossover, there's an actual energy system called the Celtic weave that is the outermost system of your energy field, your aura, that weaves all of the 9 energy systems together. And the more that your systems are woven together, the healthier you are. And so to have this weaving going on, and you can weave cells back together, you can weave holes in the aura back together, you weave the brain patterns into each other so that you're in coherence, left and right brain. So those things are happening in every EMYoga class. And you might have a focus on one energy system or another. And of course there's 9, right? And I'm only mentioning a few. But every class and really every kind of, not necessarily every pose, but within every 2 or 3 poses, you will hit squat, hang, thump, hold, weave, because that is the through line of this cohesion in the body. So that was like a quick and dirty explanation of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it helps a lot. And then it kind of leads into my next question, which is energy medicine has a few essential key concepts, which we kind of just described a little bit, but about your anatomy and its profound influence on your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Can we discuss them in brief? Maybe who are the students? Like, what are they coming with? Is it usually a physical, a spiritual, or emotional thing? Is it a combination? Is it like really what can people expect? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Whatever, everything is energy. So whatever is going on in your life, if it's going on in a good way, your energy is working for you in a good way. If it's not going right for you, your energy is not working in a good way. It's not in coherence. So if you broke a bone in your leg, then you've got an energetic imbalance that's going on beneath that broken leg, right? If you have a broken heart, then you have an energetic imbalance going on within that emotional component. If you're full of anger and rage, there's an energy behind that. If you're having a spiritual crisis, if you're having a grief, you lost a friend or a family member, and you're going through something, that's an energetic component. So if you're just having, not just, if you're having a spiritual crisis, which many people are having right now, right? That is an energetic component as well. And so we've got people, I mean, every course that we have, we put a miracle board on the wall and people write down the miracles that happen. And some of them are very, very physical based. You're going to laugh at one, but this is one we get a lot. So a lot of people suffer digestive issues, right? Which means they have difficulty with elimination, either side of whatever that spectrum is, right? So some people will come in the morning and they say like, I'm just going to say it here. I hope you can edit this out if you don't want me to say it. But, I took a great poop this morning. That's huge for somebody that suffers from constipation, which is a debilitating physical ailment, right? That's a miracle, right? Somebody hasn't slept and they suffer from insomnia. All of a sudden they sleep all the night through. That's a miracle. Then all the way up to people healing from massive trauma, emotional trauma. We've had people that have had incredibly traumatic experiences, personal violation, physical abuse, that are finally able to resolve those issues and to move forward with peace and forgiveness and start to create joy in their life again. One of the most powerful stories that one woman shared with us in our miracle circle was about she had lost the feeling in her arm after she had a breast cancer diagnosis and twice, and they removed the tumor but nicked some of the nerve endings in her armpit, and so she had no feeling in her arm, and she wore a compression sleeve. And long story short, after the 4-day training, she had total feeling in her arm again. The doctors had said they would never come back, and she had total feeling in her arm again, and 3 years later, and she still has complete feeling in her arm again. So things like that are just in Western medical model unexplainable, but in energy medicine yoga model, I don't want to say run of the mill because there are miracles, but a miracle is just something that we can't explain the mechanism behind. We are miraculous beings, and Western medicine can't explain half of the things that the human body does. It still can't explain how a cell becomes a liver cell or an eyeball cell. How does Western medicine not know that? But they still can't understand the placebo effect, and they call that an annoyance when they're doing their testing. An annoyance. This is the most miraculous thing that the human body can do: heal itself with a thought. Why isn't that like the number one funded field of study? Well, we know the reasons behind that, but what I'm saying is we are a miraculous being and anything is possible. And I love what my teacher Donna Eden says is she's never met anybody who couldn't heal. We are programmed to heal, and energy medicine yoga is really just giving you a little bit of the instruction manual so that you can find the widgets that are going to help you heal yourself.
Yeah, no, that's so powerful. It's a guide. I love what you said about we are miraculous beings, and the whole concept of the show is to make life beautiful, or in other words, how he put it is to take a seemingly ordinary world, and that seemingly is very important. So it's a seemingly ordinary world and make it extraordinary, because it is extraordinary, and we are miraculous beings, just as you said. And also, it's kind of this whole concept of you're talking about. It's like we don't need these. We talked about it in the past. These kind of painkillers or other outwardly drugs. It's like we could be high on life when everything's connected and working. And it's a natural drug, and it's so important. And then in terms of I guess my next question kind of leads into this concept of, before we kind of dive further down this rabbit hole, is in your first book, you mentioned a few power poses, or the most valuable, and I quote, "If you do nothing else, do these techniques for each of your body's energy systems." Can you share a few power poses, or a couple, to just leave everyone listening feeling powerful and heroic today? I know you mentioned squat, but now we're mentioning this like heroic self, and I figured this would be like a good segue into like asking about these power poses.
Yeah, yeah, definitely the squat is one of the power poses, no question about that. If you want to, again, I'm going to quote Donna Eden, my teacher, who I'm always giving, my deepest respect to. The goal is to die young, as old as you possibly can. So if that's one of your goals, then the squat needs to become your new best friend. There are several power poses. I think that moving bridge pose that I write about in both of these books is really powerful pose. Again, kind of working within the energy medicine yoga realm of it. And so um, I'm not sure if you want me to dissect the whole pose now, or
I
you
mean,
can
maybe
just
just in brief. You mentioned it. Did you say moving bridge?
moving bridge.
Is that like kind of like a hip thrust pose? Like if somebody is like doing at the gym, like doing like in a bridge pose, with their feet planted. Maybe we could just dissect it very
Yep, you're
quickly.
lying on your back with your knees bent, feet on the floor, about maybe 6 to 8 inches away from your hips, and lifting the hips up into the air until you're at a straight plane. So the hips aren't higher and they're not lower, they're in a straight plane. So here's your knees, here's your hips, here's your shoulders on the floor, right? And here's your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what makes that powerful, and it becomes a working pose beyond what it already is, okay? Beyond what it already is. It already is an inversion. It's already strengthening all kinds of things. But so releasing the glute muscles while you're in that pose then encourages the low back muscles, the feet, the legs to take over from the glutes, which is the second strongest muscle group in the body, right? So they always want to grab on. So to continually release those and diffuse the energy out of that muscular system into the low back. If you have low back issues, going back and forth between engaging the glutes and releasing the glutes will really help to alleviate your low back pain and struggles. Then when you release out of that pose, there are all these points on the core of the body that you can deeply massage that will release toxins. Now, I would encourage you to maybe check out the book, or maybe go on to one of my courses, maybe Daily Om. It's a really inexpensive course, and you can learn how to massage some of these points and what they're for, and only do a few at a time. I mean, you can just kind of go over your body and start to massage. I mean, it's literally from the neck to the knees. There are points all over there that are reflex points in the body, but only massage a few at a time because it's detoxing the body. And so it can make you feel really crappy, right? While the body detoxes. So massage a couple of those points and the hips come back up again. And that helps to detoxify you. It helps to move the toxins out of the body. And then hold there with the hips up, the glutes soft, for a long time. The long time is part of what allows the energy to do its transformation, as opposed to just like quick moves that a lot of people do in like a hot vinyasa flow class, right? Where you're going move to move to move to move. But it's really the longer, deeper holds that allow the energy to first do its fluctuation, right? And then come into its stillness, and then come into its openness. And so some of these longer holds are going to really have more of an energetic effect on the body. So that would be a pose, that would be a power pose. And then to give you a warrior pose, if you want, not the warriors, which we have an amazing warrior practice, but what you're talking about, the kind of superhero pose, is, see if you can see me here. Maybe I'll slide back a teeny bit more from the computer.
Yeah.
So arms are up, palms facing up, and you can be sitting or standing. Lift the gaze to the sky. And this is called heaven rushing in. And it's just what you think it would be. It's about, and this is wonderful if you can be outside and do this with your bare feet on the ground. It's about allowing this incredible divine energy of the universe to enter in through your hands, and it descends right into your heart. And you can start to feel your fingers, your hands start to tingle a little bit. And this is a place where if you're in need of something, you can ask for help or support or for guidance. And if you feel really full and joyful and complete in your life, to offer gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you for my life. And even if you're in need, there is still a thank you within that, because you're here and you're alive in your physical body, you have breath. And you can hold that as long as you like. And then here's the weave. You're going to weave that back and forth. And then you're going to bring your hands to rest. Here's the hold over the heart center, and bow the chin and give thanks to whoever you give thanks to. Thank you to this universe for the gifts of my life. Thank you for helping me when I need support. Thank you that I'm alive in this beautiful day, and that I have the cutest kitty in the world behind me on the couch. Yeah? And then there you go. There's your superhero power pose.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I know that's so powerful. I know that just from reading some like body language books, just kind of hope having that like open arm stance just makes you feel like gratitude. It just makes you feel this sense of confidence and groundedness. And just doing it while you were doing it, you had your eyes closed. But I was like just for a brief moment doing the pose, and it just makes you feel great. I think everybody should really incorporate that in the morning. And I didn't even that addition of the weave and the hold is a nice complement to it too. And I know it's based on your system, so that's great. And I have a question around, so some of the audience is pretty new to these whole concepts of yoga, energy work, and the other tools that we utilize. I would say that the audience is open-minded to these practices, but for somebody who is new to this and maybe has some doubts, like for myself, I'm very open-minded and I've experienced a lot of this stuff. And it wasn't through going through it myself that I really felt the transformation, and it really kind of flipped the switch in my mind, and it convinced me like, wow, how powerful these tools were. But I mean, always in the back of your mind, before you try something, you always have these doubts. So is there anything you would say to these people that haven't tried something similar to this and are totally new?
I think you nailed it exactly. You know, we all have these doubts. Is this going to work? Is goofy? And, I used to say this all the time when I started teaching. I'm standing in the front of this room with however many people, 10, 20, 100. And I said, I just need to let you in on the joke. I know I look silly standing up here going, woo, like, and the whole thing is that this is not a woo woo yoga practice at all. And yet here I am weaving my hands back and forth in front of the body. Okay, I might look silly, but here's the thing, the proof is in the pudding. So if you feel doubtful, there's only one way to clarify for yourself if it works or not, and that is to try it. And you have nothing to lose. Even any of you buy the book, you don't like it, return it, you get your money back. Buy every online course I have has a money back guarantee. So it's like, try it, check it out. And I teach an online course with Donna Eden, with my teacher, and we talk about that. The skeptics are become our best cheerleaders, because it's the people that are the most doubting, that are the most sure that this is going to work, that when they try it and it works, they are the biggest cheerleaders, the biggest proselytizers. So I love having doubters in my class, because they're the ones that really make me bring my A game. And what that means is I make them bring their A game. I'm not doing anything to you or for you. All I'm doing is opening up the book of your energetic system and asking you to just put your dogma aside. You don't even have to let it go. Just put it aside for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, and check it out for yourself. You do the work, because you are the magical being. I'm a magical being for myself, but for you, you are your magical being. You are your magic. And your body is designed to heal, to thrive. You are a superhero. If you cut your finger, you can look at it all you want and say, it's not going to heal. It's not going to heal. I have no healing power. It's not going to. And guess what? In a week, you won't even be able to know where that cut happened, because that is your superpower. And that ability is on every level. People have healed cancer immediately and overnight, and Western medicine cannot explain it. And so if you're doubting and you're uncertain, great. Bring that to the mat, show up, check it out. If it doesn't work for you, walk away. But I'm pretty sure that if you are open to it, that it will, because it's energy and that's all there is, and that's all you are made up of. And it's your own language of your own body. And once you start to speak that language, there's no other language.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's well, perfectly put. I mean, if you don't know and you don't try, yeah, how would you ever know if it works for yourself? And just go into it with an open mind and stay committed, and like any practice and any discipline. And I think one of the key concepts across the show and with every guest on the show is consistency. Nothing is immediate. It's the little practices you do every single day that make the difference. So your first book is centered around an 8-week learning plan for working with your body's energy systems. So this kind of goes up. We were just talking about, like, give it a try, get the book, and just start the programs. And how is this program particularly broken down across this 8 week? So about 2 months of and well, of training and learning, and why is each section so important, or maybe what are some of like the broad sections of it?
So it really breaks down each of the energy systems, and so over the 8 weeks, you'll learn each of the eight of the nine. The ninth energy system we don't work with directly, but each of the others works on it. And so each week you'll learn one or two of the systems, and then practices to kind of start to build your own home practice, because that's ultimately the goal, is that you have your own practice. And so it gives you kind of a bit of a lecture about it, why this energy system, how it works, and then practicums. Here are 3 or 4 poses that will kind of work with that system, and then the practice at the end. And then at the end of that section, it's got like a little chart where you can kind of start to create your own practice, a bit of a template, like you're at the sandwich shop, right? And you're picking all the ingredients you're going to have in your sandwich. So it's sort of laid out like that. So you can say, okay, I want to do one from this and one from that and one from that. I'm going to put that together. And the course that I have on Daily Om, it goes with that book. It doesn't go with it, but it's a kind of a video of that book practices. So you build 1 minute or 2 minutes of practice a week, and then by the end of the 8 weeks, you've got 20 or 30 minutes. That is your personal practice that's designed for what you need. Are you struggling with your immune system? Do you get sick all the time, or are you depressed all the time and you need to really work to figure out what that is that's going on? I have a friend who's broke 7 bones in his body. Okay, so what's going on with that? And so, like, okay, we figure out, well, what's the bone system in the body, and that, where that slots in and how we can work with that. So it's very personalized, because again, your energy is unique to you. Every energy is like a thumbprint. And so it's really to figure out what's going to work for you based on what isn't currently working for you.
Mm-hmm. In that last section of that book, so your first book, which for everybody is Energy, Medicine, Yoga, Amplify the Healing Power of Your Yoga Practice. But your second book, which is the Energy, Medicine, Yoga Prescription, kind of, what is that? It dives more into, it sounds like, that the last section of the book, which is more of like this prescription based approach. So when you're dealing with a particular health issue, what kind of energy practice will help the most, and to bring ourselves back into wellness, as you say. And can you talk a little bit more about the concept of this follow-up book and kind of like this prescription-based, almost like quote, quote, painkiller approach in like natural terms?
Yeah. So one of the 9 systems is called the 5 elements, and that's based on traditional or ancient Chinese medicine. This 5 element theory that everything in the universe, everything in the physical body, the cycles of the seasons, everything falls into one of 5 elements, and or rhythms or seasons. And so we break down the physical body and the emotional and spiritual body and the mental body into each of these 5 elements. And then you go, there's again, another chart that lists all the physical ailments and all the mental ailments that you could have, and which element are they in that is potentially the one that's out of balance, and then how to bring that element back into balance. So it's taking this mammoth system, which is just encompasses everything, but at the same time, everything is only one of 5 things. So it makes it really easy. If you, like my friend that broke 7 bones in his body. So bones is in the water element. And so he does have a water imbalance. And so what does the water element mean? What is the water element about? And then you can read up and learn about that, and then how to bring the water element back into balance so that you stop doing those things like breaking all of the bones in your body. And so, it also, again, because energy is everything, right? It goes into as well things like diet, things like some of the Ayurvedic practices that are, in my opinion, some of the most intrinsic and important Ayurvedic practices for keeping yourself healthy, and just other practices. There's a whole doodling practice, right? Because doodling helps to bring your unconscious into the conscious. And so all of these different techniques, it's going towards being, I don't really like the word lifestyle book, but again, really encompassing every area of your life in some capacity so that you can really start to bring everything into balance and move into joy ultimately, and peace.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And some of the concepts that you're just talking about right now are basically the concepts of this show. I mean, I just list a few in the introduction, but like doodling and like creative work and like crocheting and stuff that we've talked about on the show, it's like that's a practice. I mean, like yoga practice doesn't have to be just like the poses. Like, the poses get kind of glorified in the West as more of this type of workout, and that's totally fine. We've talked about yoga as a form of working out, like totally fine, but it's anything kind of with mindfulness, movement, and these energy systems as you're talking about. So like doodling is like perfect. Like it doesn't have, that could be your form of meditation. You go out for a run, it's like in the woods, that's your form of moving meditation. So yeah, that's awesome that you kind of mentioned that. And um, in terms of like any other actionable strategies from your programs that listeners maybe can incorporate into their practice today, or as we mentioned, like lifestyle, it kind of gets this bad name, I guess, but it's maybe because it's overused, but it really is. It's just your lifestyle. It's like how you live. And these tools really help you live in a holistic way for not only yourself, but the people around you. So are there any like actionable strategies from your programs that maybe people could implement in their simple routines today?
I mean, I think you really said it quite well, is that it's your whole life. It's how you live. It's the choices that you make, the products that you buy. I mean, in our longer courses, we talk about that, like eating organic, not just for your own health, but for the health of the farmers that are doing the farming, the people that are shipping the food. You know, that everything that we do has an impact, and that interconnection. It's like you need to take responsibility for the impact that you're having, because you are a ripple in the pond. And so what do you want your ripple to be? Do you want your ripple to be a positive, creative ripple, or do you want your ripple to be a destructive ripple? Because whatever action you're taking is having an effect on the people around you. So you know, I would say the most important, beyond all of it, beyond the breathing practices and the asana and all of that, be kind. Be a kind person. Take personal responsibility. You know, my third book, which is coming out next year, is about healing your trauma, and so that you can move into joy. And we are seeing in the world today what happens when we don't heal our trauma. Hurt people hurt people. And what we are seeing is a world of hurt, because people who have not dealt with their own trauma, their own grief, their own rage, at whatever their circumstances are acting out and depositing that incredibly destructive energy into the world. And that is rippling out. We're in a reckoning right now with the planet, with the ecology of the planet, with the ecology of interpersonal relations, We're the reckoning of slavery that we haven't reckoned with in this country. We are having a massive reckoning on every level of our society, education, healthcare. I mean, everything that we do is being looked at. Even capitalism. I don't mean even, especially capitalism, right? Everything is being looked at. So we have an opportunity to change that. And that can feel really overwhelming. What can I do about changing healthcare? And how can I change, the relations between men and women on this planet? Like everything just seems huge. But the important piece to remember is that we are all connected, which is different than we are all one. We're not all one. You are you, and you're in your studio, and I'm me, and I'm in my studio. We're very different people. We have totally different experiences in our lives. Just by dint of the fact that you are a man and I am a woman, our experiences have been radically different. But we are connected. We are connected, not just in some woo-woo yoga idea that people think of connection. In a unified physics, scientific world, we are connected. The substrate of everything is interconnected. Therefore, we are connected. And how I explain that to people is like, think of us in a big pot of soup together. And you're a piece of potato floating around over there, and I'm a piece of carrot floating around over here. We're in the same soup, and we flavor that soup. You're giving a little potato flavor to the soup, and I'm giving a little carrot flavor to the soup. And so we affect the whole, we affect the soup. You could think of it again with that water analogy. We're in a lake, and I'm kicking my feet really fast. I'm creating disruption in the lake. And I come into stillness, and then the water around me can be still. And so it's like, we often don't think that our little action, what difference does it make if I buy Tide dishwashing solution versus 7th generation? Really? That, what difference? I'm one person. I recycle my 1 cup. What difference does that make? But again, and this is not like rocket science, we know every action that we make has a massive difference, makes a massive contribution. And so the more that we can bring ourselves into coherence, that we can work through our trauma and release our difficult and challenging energy patterns so that we don't continue to put those on other people. The more I'm healed, the more my little space around me is healed, and that little space grows bigger and bigger and bigger. I affect one person, I smile at one person, they're a little happier today, they smile at the next person. That has an effect. That is what creates a movement. And every movement that has changed the world has started with one person, and then 2 people, and then 3. Every single, the civil rights movement, the feminist movement, or the women's rights movement, labor movement, when children used to work in the factories, 18 hours a day, like everything changes when people start to take personal responsibility and make positive action. So you can do that right away. You don't need a yoga mat. You don't need a book. You don't need an online course. You just need to take personal responsibility for your own self and start off with being kind.
Yeah, that's so well put. And yeah, I mean that's really well put, and everybody listening should listen to that 2 or 3 times, because that's really meaningful, and something that I said on the first few episodes, but I kind of I realized I haven't said in a while, is our thoughts control our actions, and our actions are contagious. So if we could really kind of gain control over our thoughts and kind of this healing of ourselves, then we're able to control our actions, and our actions are contagious in this collective energy. And I'm not even going to dive into it too much, because you hit it right on the point. I mean, every little decision, it's like when you think about like, oh, that's a little bit more expensive, but it's like, well, who's making that? Who are you supporting? And does that over time, this compound effect, and steering the direction of like this movement like you're talking about? And I actually just watched this documentary the other night, which everyone's probably familiar with. It's popular right now on Netflix. It's called The Social Dilemma. And they were talking about it, and like I'm getting towards the end of the documentary, and I'm like, wow, like we're screwed. Like it's just like, it was just very like pessimistic, and I'm like, okay, like now what? Like great, you like I get it. But it's like, what can we do about this? And like the last point of the documentary was like good. I was like waiting for it. Like the whole documentary was like, what can we do about this besides just everyone just going dark and deleting everything, because there is good that comes out of it. But it's like those decisions that you make, it's like the things that you click on. It's like they were talking a lot about fake news, and it's just like, well, if that's what the algorithms are optimizing towards, they're optimizing. I'm a digital marketer, so I do a lot of paid media stuff. So I kind of know on the back end how these work, and um, understand these concepts because I utilize them to my advantage. But like in terms of like my own moral obligations, it's like thinking about these concepts of, if it's fake news, or that's because that's like the topic they were talking about, or something that gets a higher click-through rate so people get more engagement. It's like if that's what people are clicking on, it's like having that awareness. I think that awareness is like a big factor that plays into effect. The more that just yourself, because it's the same thing. It's like this compound effect. It's like you have this big influence. Engage with that. It's like now you're telling the algorithm, hey, this is important, and you're steering the direction of everybody else, what everybody else is seeing. So if it's you're not going dark, then it's like be aware of kind of what you're utilizing it for and what you're engaging with, and just kind of have this moral compass, which is really just awareness and being kind, like you said. So you said it perfectly, and this kind of steers this conversation in a way where it's like when I think of like on a small scale of being aware and being kind in this collective energy, I think of pets. So you mentioned my kitten Buddha, sitting in the back, and he's napping right now on the couch, and having animals and even plants around you really has this like you really realize this collective energy, your mood, your energy for that day, how the other animals interact. You feel this collective energy and how your thoughts affect your actions, and your actions are contagious. And we talk about animals and our connection with animals and the yogic lessons that we can learn from animals a lot in this show, because it's something that's a passion of mine, and I think we all can learn so much from them. If it's not animals, then it's nature. I know from your Instagram you have a dog, is that right?
I was just looking to see if he's close by. I think he's outside right now, but I do.
Yeah.
I have that interior. Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say you have a beautiful dog, and I'd love to ask the audience who has dogs, or excuse me, or any type of animals, like what type of yogic lessons or what really life lessons can you learn from your dog? And what's your dog's name?
Louis.
Louis. So what lessons does Louis teach you on a daily basis?
I mean, I'll be honest, because I write about him extensively in my third book. He has saved my life more times than I can mention. Um, when you go through a traumatic experience, one of the hallmarks is that you tend to withdraw, and it's really the opposite of what we need to do to heal. But when you've been through something traumatic, often the last thing that you can do is be around people. And so one of the things that I recommend is that you acquire a pet, or even just go to a shelter. And I used to do that as well. I used to go to a shelter and walk dogs. And the darkest days that I went through, he was just there for me. And I mean, sounds sort of funny, right? He's a dog, what does he know? But he does. They haven't they sense your emotionality. And he would just sit on the couch with me for hours, because that's all I could do. I literally could do nothing else. I would be on the couch for hours. But not only that, I had to take care of him. So I had to come outside of myself at least long enough to take care of another creature, even if I couldn't take care of myself. And I would go for, I mean, I didn't care. I didn't eat, I didn't shower, I didn't do anything, I didn't go anywhere, but I had to take care of him. So I had to go out and walk in the woods every day. And that started to heal me. And him being so joyful. I mean, we're out in the woods and he's not like, oh, Lauren's really depressed right now, so I'm just going to be quiet walking in the woods and not. No, he'd see a squirrel and he'd run off after it, or there'd be some snow and he'd jump into the pile of snow and he'd run around, and then he would make me laugh. And so I would start to engage again and I would talk to him. And so it's like in the darkest times, there is still a spark, a living creature that has compassion and that you need to care for. And so it brings you out of yourself. And so that, I mean, he literally is my best friend. And I don't think I'd still be here without him. It was that important during those dark days that he really helped me. You know, when I didn't want to be alive, I thought, well, I have to be alive for Louis. I have to be alive for Louis. And those, you know, people who have children, you know, that there's that same sense, you know, like I need to be alive for my children. And it's a service, you know, it's a service to this other being. And it really allows you to um, step outside of your own mess, whatever that is. If it's heartbreak or trauma or just had a bad day, you know, and you come home and the dog is so happy to see you. And it's like, oh, some one creature loves me. And that's enough. Sometimes that's enough. It's enough. And it's enough to start you towards allowing yourself to be open to the universe. And they also teach you about the cycles of life. I mean, Louis, likely, if all things go well, Louis will die before I die. And so there's that grief that already I feel, that I felt him the day I got him, because I already knew that he was going to die before I was going to die. And so it teaches you about the cycles of life, and that you have to open yourself up to love, even though you know you are going to lose it, because that is the nature of being alive. And so to be able to love completely and deeply, and then to be able to let that go lightly and to still stay engaged with the world. Animals are some of our biggest teachers. I mean, that just starts to scratch the surface of what they teach us.
Yeah, I'm excited to read your third book and about Louis, and I think those topics resonated with me so much, and it's something that I didn't really think about, like that kind of that service aspect. I've always grown up with tons of animals, and I mentioned on actually uh, an episode that launched this week at the time recording this episode, which is Yoga for Dogs. About this whole, and you should definitely check it out. It's an awesome episode about this collective energy and like how, and if you have any doubts about energy, it's just like kind of look at dogs, and like we don't speak the same language. It's like they feel, or you know, cats or any really living thing experiences this, like the energy around us and the energy we give off and receive. But yeah, some of the points you made were great, and that episode is awesome, and I think you would definitely love it, and everyone who's into dogs would love that episode too. And that's, like I said, I grew up with so many animals, and this connection I kind of got lost as like I kind of went off to like this corporate world, and I just felt like something was missing in my life. And my two dogs, unfortunately, at the time, like passed away, the dogs I was growing up with. And just recently this summer, I adopted my cat Buddha, and my girlfriend and I are looking to get another dog to us. Hopefully this fall we'll adopt a dog. We just been waiting for the right time. I think we're going to name him maybe Guru if it's a guy, because there's so many lessons we could learn. So we name him Guru and Buddha.
My
Um,
sister has a dog named Guru.
and
It's
yeah,
actually
we
really
want to train as a therapy dog,
Mhm.
and bring to yoga classes with us and bring to workshops with us. And like that's who's teaching us. And it's like, or at least part of it is. And yeah, so I loved what you said, and I'm really excited to read your third book when it comes out, and about Louis. And that's awesome to hear. Yes, I'll follow you along, and everyone else could follow you along on Instagram. Is there anything else about energy medicine yoga? And I know you have a training coming up like very soon. So some people listening to this might be listening to this after the training, but of course, you could let them know where to follow you for future trainings. But yeah, like what's next for you? And can you tell us a little bit more about this training and how people could connect?
Yeah, for sure. So everything is on EMYoga.net or energymedicineyoga.net. And our training is coming up September 28th. And it teaches you the foundations of how to teach energy medicine yoga. So if you're already a yoga teacher and you want to expand your teachings and start to learn, then that's a great course for you. And then There's so many courses that I have online that you can find, and depending on what level you are, if you're a total beginner or if you're an advanced practitioner, all of these, we kind of cover all of that, and we're actually launching several more in-depth courses next year. And we have an online summit coming up, which is going to be incredible. 23 teachers, luminaries in their field that I had the privilege of sitting down with and interviewing. And it's all about moving from trauma into joy, and which is the basis for the book and the basis for a course that I taught with the Shift Network, which is also still available on my website. And I'm just super excited about it. It's all free, and it'll be starts October 15th, and it'll run over 8 days. And just incredible. Donna Eden, Nassim Herman, Bruce Lipton, Dawson Church, Merlin Sheldrake, Cosmo Sheldrake. I mean, the list goes on. It's an incredible, incredible lineup of incredible teachers. So that's coming up. And then in January, we're going to launch a manifestation course. So if you're ready to bring into your life the things that you've been longing for, and it's sort of the secret behind the secret. The secret came out a few years ago and everyone's all excited about it, and then didn't work for a lot of people. Well, I'm going to share with you why it didn't work and help you with the tools to make it work, which is of course energy. And so that course will be launching in January, and you can sign up for our newsletter. Everything's at energymedicineyoga.net. And we're here to serve you and to invite you into our community, into our Sangha, and build this ripple, build this morphic field of healing and of joy, and of a world where we can all be safe and supported and creative and joyful. So that's our mission. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your community about that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate so much of your time. And just a quick question. That October summit, is that's a virtual summit for
It is a
everybody?
virtual summit. It's online and it's
Okay,
all
cool.
free, and it's going to be great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. So everyone should check it out if you listen to it before then, this episode before then. And yeah, no, I appreciate your time so much. And I hope everybody listening really enjoyed this episode and hearing about your life as a secret yogi, but also unlocking so many other people's lives as a secret yogi with your works and your programs. So that's awesome. It's a double. We kind of hit two birds with one stone. I mean, it's a bad analogy, but yeah, it's awesome. So I appreciate it so much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to working with you again, and maybe see you in one of these courses or classes online or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate it so much. And if you want to see Buddha, since you mentioned him, he's
I've been watching him all class.
this is hold on, Buddha. This is Buddha, the other team member.
I've been watching him the whole interview. Such a cutie. Hi, Buddha. Hi,
Hey.
Kitty.
He's
So
tired. We actually I had to foster a 3-pound Shih Tzu, 9 weeks old, the past 3-4 days, because I was giving him to I help like the Make a Wish Foundation, and we had to like donate a dog. A kid wanted a Shih Tzu, and it ended up like logistics kind of. I was supposed to just receive the dog and give it to them. To the boy, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I ended up having to wash the dog for like 4 days. So I mean, I love dogs, so it wasn't a big deal. But my cat is like, even as a kitten, is like twice the size, and he would like was playing too rough with it, so we have to keep them apart. So yeah, too much. All right, I'll let you go. But thank you so much for your time. We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch for sure, and I'll send that link for you, or I'll get Allison to send that video to you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Have an amazing night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.